Welcome back, everybody, to The Creative Moment, Season 3, Episode 4. I'm Dante Bullhauer. I'm a photographer.
Jamie Bullhauer. I'm a writer.
And this is a podcast where we talk all things creativity, as you guys well know by now. So let's get right into it.
Oh, man, I'm behind.
Decent. So today we are talking about burnout. Now, this is a very prevalent topic for me, and I might have some recency bias with this. But
recency bias. Yeah. Wow, look at you. It's like you've been reading or listening to books. Or
sometimes.
Recency.
I didn't go to college. So we're talking burnout today. And if you don't know what burnout is, you either have not been in the creative industry long enough or you don't do enough work. That being said, burnout is basically just when you're uninspired, you don't want to work, you just have been kind of overstimulated by your work or just the grind of things. So let's talk about first, when most commonly do you feel burnt out?
Oh, I think you need to go first here.
Fine, I'll go first. I mean, I have a lot to
say. Because I probably actually have a view that
I'm not going to like?
Yep.
Okay, fair. I just got, at the time of recording this episode, I just got done with the winter state events, which, if you don't know what those are, it's just all the NSAA high school sports state events for the winter. It was like, okay, yeah, that was a great explanation. Every weekend, basically, I'm in Lincoln or Omaha doing something. There was a whole lot.
Swimming and diving.
Swimming, wrestling, bowling, basketball, girls and boys. So, like 5 weeks straight of a lot of content, a lot of condensed work. And this past 2 weeks, I have worked about 120 hours in 2 weeks. So, like 3 weeks worth of work condensed into 2. And I'm not going to say I'm burnt out from it, but I definitely am taking just a couple days easy. I still did some work today and things like that, but I do not want to get to the point where I am burnt out. And a lot of what I find burns me out is when I do the same thing over and over and over again. And so, for example, with these past 2 weeks, the girls and boys venue videos that play, so I make a video that plays for the championship teams right before, like, the clock hits 0, the lights go down in Pinnacle Bank Arena, and I have a hype video that plays for the game. So I ended up making 12 of those in 2 weeks, and I kind of streamlined it so it would be easier for me to just kind of not plug and play, but just kind of know the idea of where the video is going. But when I do something just over and over and over and over, and I kind of, it doesn't really challenge me creatively, I guess, that's when I start to kind of feel early onset burnout, I guess, if you call it. And so then I find that I really need to kind of switch things up. It's similar if I do a lot of graphic design stuff, then I want to do more photography stuff or video stuff. If I'm doing a lot of video editing, I usually like to change things up and do photo editing or stuff like that. So I'm not necessarily burnt out at the moment, but I can tell that if I had to do another week of this same video stuff, then I would probably need like a 2-week break or something from that.
Yeah. And as we did, one, you actually have 2 factors that do play into burnout. Okay, so in that regard, one, physicalness, because you have weirder hours, your diet is off. You cram an intense amount of work, both emotionally and physically, in a short amount of time. And again, our bodies, honestly, we only have so much time and energy. That's why, we drink too much coffee or Monsters, or, people are trying to get their body beyond energy-wise than what it needs to be. So burnout does happen on that factor when you physically push yourself and have to, in your case, this is probably the toughest time in regards to your job part. It's a long time, like it's event after event after event. You have some emotional ties Okay, Adam Central, for the girls. You've done some work for other schools, so
which tax on workload because normally I wouldn't shoot those games as extensively as I do.
Yeah, but that part is just and then when you're stuck or you have to do somewhat repetitive work for a long period of time. Okay, so no, you're probably not burned out, but the feeling, the edges of it are there because that is the kind of the perfect storm that causes people. And if it's extended, think about that, you do a job or stuff like that for half a year. Just think of how you'd actually have to feel in that regard. So yeah, you need to go Utah, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe.
Where are you going?
Montana, I don't know, Florida, somewhere warm. It needs to get warmer here. I'm tired of this 2 days good weather, snow.
Because not only was the stress, you had to travel during snow, and there's added stress to the whole thing in that regard. So yeah.
Yeah, and it definitely, it's very rewarding at the end of it, and it's very rewarding to be done. But it is just so much work, and on top of that, when I get back to regular routine stuff, all of that condensed time that I spent working, other people were emailing me asking about this, that, and the other thing. Yep. The other jobs I have going on, I have to come back to, and it's I'm 4 days behind what I would be because I spent all my time. I spent 14 hours a day at the event for 4 straight days. So it's then coming back today, and I have over 100 notifications on Facebook and email and all this stuff. It's oh my goodness. It can get to be a lot, and so I think that it's always important. I always, after the fall sports, I went to Utah, we talked about. And so I just taking just a little step back, not necessarily being hard cut and saying all or nothing, but just kind of easing back into the regular routine is how I like to kind of avoid complete burnout.
Yeah. So, and one of the ways to handle burnout is pay attention to your physical. And in that case, you also know, because Mom and I rag on you a little bit about eating better. I mean, he doesn't yet.
No. But I've started to cook. I made spaghetti for the first time the other day.
But it matters. Keeping your body fed and taking a mental break of putting your earbuds in and taking a walk. Because everybody finds themselves, it doesn't matter if it's creative, just work and stuff, in a situation where you're getting taxed with stress, creativity, the body, and time. And you have to step through and keep a few foundational things. Even if 3 songs worth of a walk around, just something okay, I got, can help making sure I know I now totally sound like a dad heading to a zoo trip. Packing good snacks or things like that so that the body stays as healthy as possible. And I think that does help. And you also know and understand the big picture, which I think you do a good job of. It's okay, this is the work time. This 5 events I got to go. When it's done, I got this. I'll take my break. Because we could get lost in oh my gosh, I got to do another hype video instead of going, okay, this is what I'm doing, and have that perspective to help work through the whatever stressful time that you're in that can cause burnout.
Yeah. So I flipping over to kind of your side, I can see burnout happening quite often. Some symptoms of burnout happening through working on a novel. You've talked about you're writing the next Friday Night Lights, that novel thing.
Yeah, the Twin Valley story. Yeah, it's basketball season.
Oh, okay.
For them, it'll be basketball season.
So a long project like that, you can feel burnt out. We've kind of touched on that in some earlier videos.
So, no. Here's where I don't believe in burnout.
Okay.
Here's my unpopular opinion. Okay? So, and we'll deal with the creative aspect generally because burnout in all kinds of situations is different. Okay? So, I'm just going to stay within the creative realm. And because you hinted just a touch at this when you're talking about your graphics and your videos and stuff, and that you weren't challenged. Okay. Burnout can happen if you're not in touch with your creativity. If you're in touch with your creativity and you are doing those things, and however big of a project, however whatever is going on, you will not experience burnout. Now, it does not mean you won't experience stress, doubt, some other things. But the idea that I'm done, I'm giving this all up, that burnout type of feeling, I don't think happens when you stay in touch with your true creativity or an expression of it. Okay? So, like if I, writing the novel, maybe I hit a rough spot or something, I write poetry, I write a blog, I do, or I go take a walk or something, just to be inspired. But we have defined creativity as an expression of ourselves. We can't get burned out if we are continuing to express ourselves. There's other factors. I get that your job, that's a job, and there's time commitments and stuff like that. So burnout probably isn't actually the real emotion. It's just stress management. It's time, just dealing with the work that is involved there, because you're gonna go probably when you break. You're gonna take some photos that you like to take. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
To get out of that feeling, what you're gonna do? You're gonna be creative. You're gonna do something that fills your bucket in a sense.
Yeah, and I think I actually agree with that. So, but yeah, the most times when I feel the burnout kind of symptoms, I guess, is when I'm not being, when I've done something over and over and it feels like it's just not challenging me or bringing out my creativity, I guess. And a lot of times with me having deadlines to meet and things like that, a lot of times that can kind of come on because I don't feel that I have the time to put that creativity in, creativity that I want into that work.
Yeah.
And it's that balance of that a lot of people struggle with, is putting all of my creativity in here versus getting it done on time.
And the customer, we've talked about, and in this case, you're producing stuff and people are now expecting it even.
Yep.
And so there's that tension. Do I add a little, do I cross that line, or do I deliver what's expected and everybody enjoys it? But, oh my gosh, if I could just...
Yeah, and so it's a balanced walk, and when I feel that I'm doing more of just meet the deadline, just do what they want, just do the status quo, that's when I start to feel a little more on the side of this isn't as fun, this isn't as challenging or working my creativity as much. And so it's all about kind of perspective of noticing that you're getting a little more on that side of the spectrum and still maintaining, those deadlines and keeping the clients happy and things, but also re-inducing that creativity into your work. And maybe that does lead to you staying up a little longer so you can get that done on time and just spark that creativity again. But yeah, that's most of the time tedious work that's repetitive, and timelines are what causes symptoms of burnout for me.
Yeah. And of all creatives, especially when they got projects or We have some family that is like flipping houses and like the interior design. But you create that timeline though. It's like, okay, I gotta get this done. If whatever the job is, or we've talked about deadlines and stuff and the importance of those. That pressure I think can lead to those stressful situations and things, but yet I think also because you also mentioned that you kind of got a system down to help keep that, because you don't quite stay up quite as late when you started this whole adventure.
No, not even close.
Yeah. So you've got that down, and that's a part of working your creativity. Okay? And knowing that it's a simple example, but the family knows that, my daughters know that I will just say, hey, I'm writing. I put it on the headphones, and they kind of know, all right, Dad's going to be, zoned in for about 30 minutes or so, and working the chance to be creative. Again, we've already talked about the unpopular opinion that I don't think you can just write whenever your muse, that you can set up flow, you can set that stuff up. And that also then allows you to be creative, which allows you to stay away from burnout. And even if you have a bad day in regards to just life, man, I sit down, I got 30 minutes with my headphones on, and I can write, or I can get my ideas scratched out on paper. I am charged up. My energy, is good to go. Like, okay, cool, bad day at work, but I was in touch with that. And so that's where burnout, I think, happens when we get away from, if it happens, it's because we get away from our expression.
Yeah, and I think if you're kind of battling some of that stuff, a lot of the reason that I am able to I make more time for me to be creative in these videos by doing just a little extra prep work. So I have in my little notebook kind of the storyboard for those videos, and I did that before I even left for the tournament. I knew kind of how it was going to go. I was going to go one clip of this team, next team, another clip, and then clip like montage of one team. I was going to have this same transition when it switches to the other team for every video, and then I had the final template where it's like Parkview versus Why Not or whatever. So doing that little extra prep work beforehand allowed me to have more time actually when I'm executing to have a little more creativity, add a little transition here or a cool little kind of effect here.
That effect, I know that for the girls, the one like
the dissolve
type. Yeah, I was like, and sometimes again maybe the general audience doesn't really appreciate that, but yet it's just so ingrained into the moment, and that's what it should do.
It should subconsciously enhance it without you really knowing.
Yeah, so we're going, what was that? Like, they just like, oh, that was so cool. Yeah. Like the experience kind of, because you got to work your creativity a little bit.
Yeah, and so just doing like kind of transitioning into ways you can kind of avoid this burnout symptoms, those types of things. Little work beforehand on the side that maybe doesn't spark your creativity as much, gives you more time and energy to put towards that creativity.
Yep.
And like you said, creating just kind of that little environment to, okay, I'm going to use this 30 minutes. I'm going to tell everybody around me like, hey, I'm locking in. That can help you. Like, if you're like, I'm going to solely focus on this, something's going to happen. You talk about the writing, like the scribbles until you finally start thinking of words, things like that. A lot of people talk about if you just go to like a coffee shop and just have stuff to work with, you're just going to work on it because one, it's awkward if you just kind of sit there and look at other people. But a lot of people swear by, I don't know what it's called. It's some trend on TikTok of like something like work inducement or something where you go to a coffee shop and like, you just work because you've created that environment where there's nothing else to really distract you.
Yes, I can't think of it. But yes, I understand the psychological concept. Can't remember the fancy name.
So what are some other ways, maybe some other just kind of things to avoid if you're maybe feeling them already, to kind of balance that?
Well, on a really deep, one aspect of burnout in regards to all kinds of aspects of life, a deep one is you have to decide and readjust and evaluate your why. Like that, because doing something over and over again, and it's just like all you do is you kind of dig a hole if you're in that severe of a burnout kind of situation, and then from there takes some courageous action based off of that, and both in the creative world and just in life and relationships and stuff. Lots of people, it's hard to be courageous. Because burnout, if you really hit burnout, I think that's a way that your life or fate or just your job, whatever, is telling you this is not you. Because your real creativity, as we've defined here and stuff, sparks you. It can lift you from a bad day. It can. So if you get into that kind of deep aspect of burnout, there's a serious readjustment. You have to spend some time and really decide what's going on and what the next move is, how drastic. You know, one of the times that I didn't have a job and still raising family was kind of a really odd mix. Burnout was kind of a part of it, but there's a lot more to it. But yet it was a really hard time. And Mom and I was like, hey, you need to go. You just, we'll deal. And I left, and you know.
Yeah. And talking about like knowing your why. If you know your why, there's sucky parts to everything, no matter what it is, no matter how fulfilling it is, there's going to be hard parts of everything, things that you don't like. So sticking true to your why and knowing at the end of the day, I'm doing this for this reason, and having it be a fulfilling reason, something that like means something to you and the people around you, will keep you from inevitably reaching burnout. Because if your why is what you're meant to do, you always just be drawn back to it in some capacity. And like you talked about, I think that if you have reached burnout where you're like, I never want to do this again, then yeah, it's probably the universe saying you're not in the right avenue. You need to go branch off and try something else, because this is not what you thought that it was. And so, yeah, I think with that, we're a little burnt out. Just kidding, because burnout isn't real, apparently. But we're going to go take a nap. At least I probably will. This was The Creative Moment, Season 3, Episode 4, and we will see you guys in 2 weeks.